to another edition of Tech Tuesday presented by Delta Media Group, where we know if you see a grandfather clock anywhere in Hawkins, Indiana, just walk the other way. Just go somewhere else. So, today we are going to take a look at Open House Connector. We've had a few videos in the past where we've covered it, but as always, we've added some updates to it, so we'd like to take another look. Now, what Open House Connector allows you to do is basically set up a digital sign-in sheet at any open house that you host, allowing your customers to sign into that sign-up sheet and automatically be added into your CRM. Some of the beauty about how it works is that first you can set it up on a tablet. Just set up, an iPad or an Android tablet, or even a laptop, and just have the customers sign in there. So it's real easy that way. And it can also work without being connected to the internet. So if you don't have, say you have an iPad and you don't have Wi-Fi access to the open house, customers can sign in, and then when the tablet reconnects to Wi-Fi, it can upload all the contacts that signed in and automatically add them to your DeltaNET CRM. So, without further ado, if we go over here to Listings and then down to Open House Connector, that will take us into the Open House Connector system. Now, because these side navigation items are customizable on a per company basis, you can also type Open House Connector, or I should say, if you don't find it over here in the side nav, you could type Open House Connector up here in this top nav, and you can get there that way as well. Open House Connector, and there we go. So there's a link to the Open House Connector page directly using the quick actions up at the top. So you do have a couple of different ways to get there. Now, once you've found your way to the Open House Connector page, you can see that we have the login credentials section over here on the left. Now, this is specifically credentials that you'll use to log into the app itself, if you need to, and I'll get into that in a little bit. You have links to the app itself, so assuming you logged into the DeltaNET on your Android tablet or your iPad, you could use the appropriate link here to go straight to the App Store and download it onto your device from the App Store. Or, if you are accessing this on a laptop and you plan on using that laptop, you could just click this Use in a Web Browser link, and that would open up the actual Open House Connector app in a web browser that you could then full screen and just have the laptop there at your open house. So we'll get into the details there in a moment, but before we do that, we'll just run through some of the open house records themselves from past open houses and what those look like, as well as the questions and settings involved with the app. So first off, you'll start off on your main open houses page, and this is laying out every open house that you have hosted using Open House Connector before. So if I click on any of these, now they'll automatically be added in when you do host an open house. But when I click on one, you can see this open house. This is when it happened. You can see that one guest signed up, and then the first tab I have here is showing me all of the questions that are part of the survey in the app. So this is just a breakdown of how each customer answered those questions on a per question basis. So it'll just give you a total how many of your customers or how many open house guests answered no or answered yes to this particular question. Now, if I want to see a breakdown per guest, I can click on Guest Overview. And then this actually shows me each of the guests that did sign in on the open house and how they specifically answered the survey questions. Now, the additional piece here is that Open House Connector can be set to automatically import all of the contacts that come into the open house that are sign up on the Open House Connector app, or it can be set not to import them automatically, in which case it just kind of stores them in the app, and then it's up to you to go in here and import them if you choose to. If that were the case here, I would have a button up here at the top that says Import All Guests, and then down here I would have a little marker on each one of the guests that have not been imported, and I would have an Import button so that I could import the guests individually, or I could just click the button up here to import every guest that came into this open house and make them just part of my regular CRM. So you do have the ability to set all that up. So we'll close that out. Now the next piece we have is survey questions. So if I go over here, you can see that we have two different categories for our survey questions. The open house survey are the questions that are presented in the app. So when someone signs in at the open house, it'll actually run them through these questions after providing their contact information. So you can set up as many questions as you want here within reason. I don't know what the limit is. I've never found it. So you can set up quite a few questions here if you'd like. And then you can determine individually without deleting the questions if you want to turn them on or off. So in this case, these are questions that are company questions, so I can just switch them on and off. I don't have options to edit or delete them, but I can preview them. So if I want to turn this guy on, turn this on, I can just click those toggles. And if I want to change the order, I can just drag them And you can see up here that it updates automatically, so I don't have to click a save button. As I make changes here, they'll update on their own. So go ahead and turn that question off, and then I can click on preview as well, and this shows me what that question actually looks like and where it was created. So this one was created at the company level. Now, assuming this ability is turned on at the company level, because the company does have the ability to kind of lock these questions down, but if you do have access to it, you can also create your own questions. So to do that, I would just click on New Question. I would type in what I want my question to be, choose my question type. So of those options, we have a single select, so I would just lay out all of my options. This one's basically multiple choice, so I would lay out all my options here, and I can select a single option from this list, or the customer rather can select a single option from that list. We also have multi-select, in which case we would have a series of checkboxes here that they would be able to click the checkbox next to select multiple responses. We have a special question that is represented by another agent. Now, if you add this question in, your only options are yes or no, and this one's particularly important because if they do answer yes here, that they're represented by another agent already, you won't be able to import that customer. And you can see here, this question's actually already in place. You can tell by that icon, because you do have the ability to decide what the verbiage should be for that question. Now our next question type is text response, which is just an open text response. Now we'll go back to select real quick. Now you can see we do have an additional option if you do a single select question where you can allow other. So basically you would have your whole series of questions, and then you would have an additional option to allow the customer to type in something that is not one of your options. So they would be able to pick option A, B, or C, or D, and then fill in what their answer should be. So that's what allow other would do. The next thing you can do here is you can decide whether this is added to the pre or post open house survey. Now it's nice to be able to do that when you do create the question, but know that you do have the ability to move them around too. So if I create this as a pre-open survey, so this would be the open house survey in the app itself, and I saved it, it would add it to this list. But then if I decided that I don't really want to ask that question in the app, I'd rather ask it after the open house, I can drag it over here, and now that question comes in here instead. Let's go ahead and back this one back over. Now once you have created custom questions, you can see instead of just a preview button, you have this actions button here. And if I click that, I can preview it just like the other ones, but I can also edit or delete it because this is my question that I've created and not a company question. Now, one other piece I'll point out here is we do have this question mark here, and you can see that it gives you a little description of the difference of the open house survey versus the post open house survey. And really what it comes down to is sometime after the open house takes place, an email goes out to the customer that leads them to these questions. So the idea is that first walking into the open house, they might answer these questions, but then after they've seen the house and moved on, then they'll get an email where they can answer questions that might be more relevant to ask after the open house is over or after they've already been through the home. So the next step we have here, or rather the next section, next tab, is the settings tab. So here we have a few additional options related to the app itself. We have the text for the sign-in prompt. So, and we'll get a look at that here in a minute, but we can customize that text a little bit. And over here it's showing us a preview of exactly how that sign-in prompt is going to look. First name and email address are already required, but we can decide whether or not there is a phone number field too. So we could disable that so we don't ask for a phone number. We can make it active so we do ask for it but don't require it. Or we can make it required so they actually have to enter the phone number to move on to the survey questions and sign into the open house. Now another thing that's neat was kind of a COVID piece that was added to this is the sign-in style. So in addition to just saying in-app sign-in, in which case anyone would walk up to the tablet, for example, if that's where you're displaying Open House Connector, and they would just have this sign-in form, you could also have a QR code included. So it could show the sign-in form and then a QR code below it, and that allows the customer to actually sign into the Open House with their own device. They just scan your QR code, and that takes them to a page where they can fill out the survey without actually using your laptop or tablet or whatever you have set up. Likewise, you could make it QR code only so that they don't use your device or your tablet at all. They just scan that QR code with their own device and then fill out the survey that way. And sign in. So we'll go ahead and do both so we can take a look at what both of those look like. And I'll go ahead and save that. There we go. Now moving down a little bit, this is where we can control the open house guests that do sign into this and exactly whether they're imported right away or not. So first we have auto import guests. If this is switched on, then that means any guest that signs up on the Open House Connector app that did not say they're represented by another agent will automatically be imported when that device connects to the internet, if it's not connected already. So when we have that activated, you can see the other option disappears when we deactivate it, but when we do have it activated, we have the option of creating follow-up tasks as well. So if I switch that on, then that means not only will it import them in to my CRM, but it'll create a follow-up task for them, just to remind me to follow up with that customer down the line from when they were first added. And then next, we can choose what we want, or what group we want them to import to. Now this is neat because whenever you have guests sign in to the Open House Connector app and have them imported into the system will automatically put them in a group that corresponds with the property in that open house. So if I had open house at 123 Main Street, for example, and I had a bunch of guests sign into Open House Connector at that particular open house, when they're auto-imported, they would go into a group called 123 Main Street Open House, or something similar to that. In addition to that, I could have everyone who signs in on Open House Connector, not just at that open house, but at any open house, put into a single group as well. So, for example, I could have one open house at 123 Main Street and another one at 456 North Street. The ones at 123 Main Street will be imported into a 123 Main Street group. The ones at 456 North Street will be imported into a 456 North Street group. But if I have a group defined here, all of those customers from both open houses will also be imported into this group. The reason that's important is that if I wanted to then send out an email blast, for example, to everyone who has attended any open house I've hosted and used Open House Connector for, I can send it to this group and that will pick up everybody no matter which open house they went to. Likewise, I could put that in a email campaign, for example, and when all those guests are imported, they'll automatically be added to that campaign, and if I have that campaign set out to send an email on, let's say, day 5, then 5 days after they're added, they'll automatically get an email, and I won't have to do a thing. All I had to do was define the group here, and then take the group and put it into the campaign, and then we're all set to go. So unlike the other page, you do have to click the Save button when you make any changes here, just to point that out as we move along. And then the next one we have here is this is the email that sends out, if it is switched on, with those post-survey questions. So you have this survey autoresponder to guest. This allows you to customize the information that goes into that particular email content. Just to give you that extra piece of customization that you can kind of personalize those emails that go out. Or I can switch it off entirely, in which case it won't send this autoresponder after the open house at all. Now if we scroll down a bit more, we do also have the option of turning on the open house summary report. So you can see here, email report will be automatically generated containing all of the guests that logged into Open House Connector during the open house, as well as a summary of the survey results. So if you do not want that email to go out, you would just switch this off and save it, and then you wouldn't get that report. All right, so that takes us to the settings of Open House Connector. So now let's take a look at the app itself. So I am demonstrating this in a web browser, so we're going to use this Use as Web Browser option. The thing to keep in mind here is that if I do use this button, it automatically logs me in to Open House Connector. Now, if I had, let's say, used a tablet and I had just gone directly to, if I used an iPad and I just went directly to the iTunes or the Apple App Store and I downloaded the Open House Connector app there, when I first logged into it, or rather when I first opened it, I would actually be logged out of it, so it would take me to a page that looks like this. And this is where one of our updates comes in. So as I mentioned, we go back over here to our other tab, I can use these credentials to log into the Open House Connector app. I would just put my DMG ID here, which is agent ID, put my PIN here, and that would log me into Open House Connector. However, we've recently made an update where you can log in here using a verified email or phone number as well, and you would just use that in conjunction with your regular DeltaNET password. So if I go over here, and we'll just take a look at my profile page real quick, you can see that I have verified an email address. Now if I hadn't, there'd be a field here that says verified email, and I would be able to type in my email address, hit update, the system would send me an email, and then I would click a link in that email, and that would verify that that address belongs to me. If I scroll down a little bit more, you have the same option in the phone number section. So there's a phone number here. there would also, if I had not already verified this number, there'd be a button here that says verify. And if you click that, you'll get a text message that verifies your cell phone number. If you have verified either or both of those things, you can use either of them as your username here to log in conjunction with your DeltaNet password. So I'll go ahead and put in my email address that I have verified, and I'll put in my regular DeltaNet password, if I can remember what it is. Click login, and you can see it logs me right in. So I didn't have to use that DMG ID and PIN. I can just use information that I already know, so I don't have to go into the DeltaNet and look it up. But as I said, if you do click on the Open in Web Browser link right here in Open House Connector, and we'll go back over there. Listings and Open House Connector, there we go. So if I did click this Use in Web Browser link, it does log me in automatically anyway. So just depends on what your device or what device you're using this on as to how important that is. So once you've gotten into Open House Connector, we have My Open Houses, so this will show any open houses you have upcoming. We also have Company Open Houses, so this is if you're hosting a open house for someone else at the company, you can pull those up here. If there were a lot, conceivably you might have a big open house weekend where there could be tons and tons of open houses here. You can search by address, so you could type in the property address up here, and that would narrow this list down. So we'll go back over here to open houses. Once you found the one you're going to host, you just click on that one, and now this is your sign-in form. So you can set this up on a laptop or on a tablet. If a customer came in, they could then, based on our settings, they could scan this QR code, and that would take them to a page where they can fill out the survey questions and sign in. Or we can just click sign in, or rather the customer could just tap on sign in. They could enter their information here and click next, and as they click next, it'll walk them through each of the questions. So Open House Connector guest. Can't spell today. Now you can see that the next button lit up even without a phone number because I have it included but not required. So we'll go ahead and just click next. You can see it asks me a question here, so we'll say we're not represented by another agent. And I'll just pick some random questions. It's just taking me through all those open house survey questions. And now that it's done, I've registered. And we're back to the sign-in screen. So that's all there is to it. And then you can quickly look back at your tablet and you can see how many people have signed in. Now a few other options that exist here. If I go down here to admin, you can see that we can get into the admin dashboard. We can end this open house when it's over. And we can also provide some feedback about the app. So if you do want to leave some feedback for us, you can do that as well. So we'll say admin dashboard here. Now it's going to ask for my password that I'll have to remember again. How did I do? Not very well. I can never type and talk at the same time. So there we go. So if I go into the admin panel, you can see that we have some more information here. I can end the open house, return to survey, but then it also lets me look through all of the guests that have signed in while the open house is still going on. And I can see how they answered those questions as well. So just a nice convenient way for me to look up that information. If I did have a lot here, I could also type in the guest name and it would narrow this list down if there were, enough in the list that it was worth doing that. So, and then return to survey takes us right back into the survey. So there you go. That is Open House Connector and a few of the additions we have made to it recently. We'll go ahead and close that deal out there. There we go. And that's the kind of thing you can do with it. So as always, if you have any questions, comments, concerns, send an email into support@deltagroup.com or give us a call. We can help you with that or anything else you need. And if you're enjoying these videos, you want to see more tutorial videos for the DeltaNet, feel free to like and subscribe to our channel. Thanks a lot, and we'll see you again next week.